If you teach kindergarten or first grade, it's a question you get asked all the time. How do you spell a word? And while we want to teach our students to become accurate spellers, we also want them to become independent spellers, trying strategies on their own. Today I'm going to teach you 9 spelling strategies that you can teach your early writers so that they don't have to rely on you all the time. But first, if you're new here, welcome to my channel. I'm Brenda Tejeda and I've taught for 17 years, mostly in kindergarten and first grade, and I love sharing my literacy tips with you, so make sure that you like this video and subscribe so you don't miss them. Now today let's talk spelling, because as much as we would want to sit with each student all the time and help them with their spelling, it's something that's not realistic. So we have to teach some strategies to help them learn to do it on their own, to at least try to do it on their own, right? So today I'm going to teach you 9 different strategies, and we're going to make an anchor chart, which I have free for you. So make sure that you check the link in the description box and grab these pieces to make your own anchor chart. And the beauty of this is once your anchor chart is made, you can display it in your classroom, and whenever students have trouble spelling a word and they come to you, you can refer them to the anchor chart so they can try it on their own. Now, this anchor chart isn't going to be built in one day. You're going to teach each strategy on its own day, and you're going to keep adding to this anchor chart. So let's start with the first strategy. And the first strategy is the most popular, which is stretch it out or sound it out. We want to teach our students to be able to segment the sounds in a word, but that can be tricky at the beginning. At first, they might not be able to segment each individual phoneme in a word, so we like to speak whale. And if you're familiar with my writing units, you know this is Wendy Whale, and we like to speak whale to stretch out words so that we can hear more sound in it and record most sounds. So instead of saying hello or writing the word book, we could say book, map. Instead of having to segment each individual sound at the beginning of the year, if kids are having a hard time with it, you can speak whale and say it slowly. So let's add stretch it out to our anchor chart. Now you're going to display this anchor chart up in your room, and every time you teach a new strategy, remind them of the strategies that they've already learned to help them spell. Now let's go over to the next strategy, which is find the vowel. Now I have a little tip for each strategy, and for this one I love to give my kids the vowel challenge. So I tell them, try to think of a word that does not have a vowel. So obviously we're going to go over the vowels first, A, E, I, O, U, and Y, which is actually a vowel more frequently than it is a consonant. And I tell them, give me any word, and I bet you it has a vowel. So it's a challenge, and they try to trick me and come up with a word that doesn't have a vowel. Now, onomatopoeias don't count. So the sound words like shh and those don't count because those don't always have vowels. So I ask them to give me a word. They might say cow, and I write it. And then I'll ask them, okay, does anybody see a vowel in there? Oh, that's a vowel. Give me another word. Play. Okay. What are the vowels? Look up here. What are the vowels that we have in that word? A is a vowel, and Y is sometimes a vowel. So this is a fun game to reinforce and remind them that after they spell a word, they have to check for the vowel sound in it and make sure that they have a vowel in the word. Let's add that strategy to our anchor chart. Strategy number 3, use a word wall or a sound wall to help you with spelling. So with this, you can play I Spy regularly with your students so that they learn how to use those walls to help them, and they don't just become wallpaper. You can say I spy a word and help them and let them find it on your word wall, or you can say I spy a sound and help them find the sound on your sound wall so that they know how to do it when they're writing independently. Let's add these to our anchor chart. Now these can be word walls for high frequency words, or if you have theme word walls, let's say we're studying pumpkins and you have created a wall together or anchor chart with words that have to do with pumpkins and they're writing about pumpkins, you can refer them to that chart to help them with spelling as well. Okay, our next strategy is to think of a word you know. So if you're trying to spell a new word, but it reminds you of another word that you know how to spell, you can use that to help you. And here's a little activity that we like to do with our little slide here and working with word families. So if I know how to spell the word book and I want to spell the word cook, I know that if I take away the B sound, I will have ook. Now I need to replace that B sound with the sound I hear at the beginning of cook. Which letter do you think is going to represent that sound? I think it's going to be the C, so let's slide down and say that sound. K, Now let's see what other words we can make that rhyme with book and cook. So we take a consonant at a time and we make that sound as we're going down the slide. It bumps into the ook and it makes a new word. Look. Hook. Think of a word you know is now going on our anchor chart. The next strategy is pretty simple. Just remind them to use the rules that they've learned so far. So you can refer to your anchor charts or your sound wall and remind them of the different rules that they've learned for phonics skills. For example, VCE, when you have one vowel, a consonant, and the letter E, that E will be silent and the vowel will make its name. Digraphs are another one. So remind them, what do you know about the sh sound? What letters represent that sound? So word walls, sound walls, anchor charts, they're all tools that your students can use to help them with their spelling. And another tool is an ABC chart. I like to give my students an individual ABC chart. We have a class one as well, but something that they can keep close at hand to help them when they get stuck on a sound and they need to look it up to see what it looks like or what letter represents that sound. So let's add this to our anchor chart. Our next strategy is to think of the base word and write the base word first. Now this is a tricky one. And I don't know if it's my New York accent or what, but when I say certain words with a suffix, we kind of tend to drop that last consonant in the base word. Like in jumped, you don't really hear that P. Wanted, you don't hear the T in want. You don't hear the T in planted. I planted a tree. But if I say plant, you hear that tree. So I always remind my students, think of the base word, write the base word first, then add the suffix to it. And it helps them to hear those sounds more, and then they can add the suffix. And it also avoids them from writing just a T, let's say, at the end of jumped. Right? Sounds like a T, so they would just write a T. But if they remember, oh, a suffix is not, T is not a suffix. If it sounds like T, it's probably ED. So that's another one we can add to our anchor chart. Now, I know I said 9, but I actually have a couple more, so bear with me. Now, you're obviously not going to teach all of these in one day, right? This is over time. You might not even get to all of them in kindergarten, but you're going to keep reviewing them and reminding students of everything they can do on their own to try to spell a word before asking you. Let's get to the next one, which is break it up into syllables. So, of course, it's more challenging to write a word that is multisyllabic. A word like watermelon, we wouldn't expect a kindergartner or even a first grader to spell that accurately, but they can do their best if they break it up into syllables. So you would have them clap out the syllables and then tap out or sound out each syllable independently and write that syllable down and then do the next syllable one syllable at a time. So break it up into syllables is another strategy that we can add to our anchor chart. And along with that, we can teach them that not only each word has a vowel, but each syllable must have a vowel. So those are two strategies that can go hand in hand. Have them tap out each syllable and make sure that that syllable has a vowel sound before going to the next syllable, and go back and reread to check. So we're running out of space, but I do have one more strategy for you. And it always reminds me of when somebody tells you about a person and they say the name and you just can't put the face to the name, right? Like you think you'd remember what that person looks like, but you can't quite remember. But if you saw that person, you would know who they are right away. This is kind of like that, and it is try 3 ways. A lot of the times our students have seen a word and they kind of know how to spell it, but they might not be 100% sure. So they might write it one way, and you'd be surprised at how often they do know that it's not spelled correctly. So I encourage them, try to write it a different way. Try to think of another spelling pattern that you know that can make those sounds. And once they spell it, they usually catch it if they spell if they spell it accurately. So let's go ahead and add try 3 ways to our anchor chart. Okay, now that we have all of these strategies, I'm going to show you something that I actually add to the beginning of our anchor chart as soon as I teach the very first strategy, and that is to reread to check. So we always want to teach our students, after you do any writing, go back and reread it, and if you're not sure about a word, put your finger under it, say the sounds that you wrote down, and see if it matches the word that you wanted to write. So when you teach the first strategy, put this right next to it, and then as you keep adding strategies, you can move this down, always reminding your students to reread their work to check. Now, this beautiful anchor chart is useless if kids are not using it. So I always made sure to model in my own writing using the anchor chart, modeling all the strategies so that when it was time for them to do their writing, they knew exactly what to do. And if they asked me, how do you spell something? Okay, so I know that sometimes it's like quick or it seems easy to just give them the spelling, but I knew that if I did that, they would just learn how to rely on me and keep asking me. So instead of giving them the spelling, I would say, oh, remember the anchor chart, go and see if you can find a strategy yourself. And if they had a hard time, I could remind them of a strategy that they needed. For example, if they were writing the word cook, I could remind them, oh, remember, we can use a word that we know. Right? So instead of giving them the exact spelling, I'm helping them find the tool that they need to spell that word. Which of these strategies do you teach your students? Do you have a favorite? Did I miss one that you teach? Make sure to add it in the comments to let us know. And don't forget to hit that thumbs up on this video and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss my future videos. Thank you so much for watching.